Om Shrutehe Shatagunam Vidyan Mananam Mananadapi Nidijasam Lakshagunam Anantam Nirvikalpakam Om Shantihi Shantihi Shantihi. Hearing about the truth of Brahman is good. Taking teachings on Brahman is better. Meditating directly upon the truth of Brahman is better still. And best of all is that meditation in which the nature of reality becomes revealed. Om, peace, peace, peace. Om Sahana, Om Sahana Vavatu, Sahano Bhunaktu, Sahaviryam Kharva Vahai, Tejasvi Navaditamastu Ma Vidvesho Vahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. May Brahman protect us. May Brahman sustain us. May Brahman illumine our thinking consciousness. May we not find fault with each other, with the teachings or with the world. And may what we study be a source of inspiration to us eternally. Om, peace, peace, peace. May peace be unto us. May peace be unto all. Om Hari Om. Now we have all arrived, either live streaming or live, at the SRV Association's ashram in Hawaii, that is on the big island of Hawaii, here in Waimea. And we all gather here for the 5th and final class of the Bhagavad Gita. We've had a series. We'd like to do series to keep people engaged over a period of time. We can spend a month of Sundays, isn't that an expression? Spend a month of Sundays diving into the Dharma, then that will be exceedingly good for you. At the time it's happening, but not always, the mind can't always recognize what it's going through and what kind of transformations it's having, and how many karmas are being dispelled, and how many samskaras are being remade or destroyed, as the case may be. These are all, of course, words that inner circles in spirituality who know about Vedanta and Yoga and Sanskrit and so forth know about. But maybe even later down the line when you're meditating on Brahman, as we were just chanting, or when you're looking at your notes or reading in the Gita yourself, because the Gita is this serious subject this time around, then maybe you'll have some insights or some realizations. So they could be stark slaps in the face. They could be ecstatic bhavas or moods that come over you from day to day, depending on as Krishna says, the cycling of the gunas, whether the mind gets into a balanced mood in any given cycle, or a restless mood, or a dull mood. And those 3 gunas are very important to know about. They're unique to Vedanta and its teaching, and find it in Upanishads and Gita, which are Vedanta. I mean, basically, if you were going to look for an author for the Gita, it would have to be Vedavyas, because he put together this Bharata, Mahabharata, you see, in the Gita is in there. So Vedavyas was the father of Vedanta, so you see this profound connection, and in that way then you know that you're studying the scriptures of Mother India at the Shruti level. We just chanted that, Shruti Yukti Anubhava, or sometimes you call it Shravana Manana Nididhyasana. You see that Shankar mixed it up in that chant I opened the class with. Om Shrutehe Shatagunan Vidyan Mananam Mananadapi. So he's going Shrute, Mananam, and Mananadapi, then Nididhyasana. So it means shruti, hear the scriptures, manana, roll it over in your mind, come to a conclusion about it, and then meditate on it, nididhyasana. And then bring it full circle into your life. So that's what we do with all of these scriptures, and if we, let's put it this way, we can only really do that if we hear them over and over again. An off and on again type of spiritual practice, or running hot and running cold, is much like the gunas. But might as well be like that when your atmosphere around your spiritual practice or around study of scriptures wanes and waxes, and then somewhere indeterminate in the middle. You see, sometimes you're thrilled to be engaged in it, other times you're put off by it and unable to, and other times you're just kind of give or take. Oh, maybe I'll pick it up and read it. But when that enthusiasm grows, and that's one of the things that we found in the 32 points of the Immortal Dharma, we've probably studied some, got more than half of them under our belt with that chart that we took last week, which we'll just launch ourselves into the next class with here. When you have that much under your belt, then you'll feel like you have something to roll your mind over. You see, shruti, you heard it, and then mananam, you rolled it over in your mind. Manas means mind. You know that your mind is fourfold, right, in Vedanta. When I first found that out in my late teens and early 20s, that the mind complex was fourfold, according to the ancient rishis. That was a great revelation. It consists of duality. The mind is always pro and con, good and bad, life and death, virtue and vice. It's always being batted about. And it's the nature of mind is to have these contrasting dualities in it. If you know that about it, then your challenge is to make it one-pointed. If thine eye becomes single, and then that's your great test for spiritual life. Can I keep it sattvic? Can I keep it one-pointed all the time, even in the midst of all these dualities that we went through last week? See, you have to be the same in censure and praise. You have to be the same in good and bad. You have to have titiksha. You have to have even-mindedness, forbearance. All these things he's been talking about, many of them really kind of add up to the same thing. Is your test in spiritual life, if you want to live a spiritual life in the world while you're on earth, in the body we're talking about, then the great challenge is to keep yourself even. Try and balance out those gunas, because eventually you're going to want to transcend them. One of the great devotees of Sri Ramakrishna was Swami Triguna Titananda. He even came to the West after Swamiji did and taught here. So Triguna Tita, you see, Triguna, the three gunas, Atita, beyond them, and the bliss that follows that. You see, if you can get beyond the three gunas and balance them out. Because the idea is that before form happened, those gunas were wiped out. See, they were in harmony. Everything was in harmony. In fact, probably be better to say in unity. See, but as soon as the idea of form came into the cosmic mind, then the three gunas got out of abeyance, you see, and they broke, and then the cycles came out of these three gunas. It's all coming out of unmanifested nature, formless matter, they call it. But formless matter isn't just something out there in a black hole. See, that's outer formless matter. Inner formless matter is unmanifested nature. It's our thoughts. Fire is in our thoughts, air is in our thoughts, earth is in our thoughts. Seeing, sleeping, touching, feeling are all in our thoughts first. And then the deed follows. Thought is father to the deed. So in this outward moving process called evolution, we've talked about how important it is to be able to trace yourself back to involution. But if you don't know the steps through which you came out, you can't find your way back when you're trying after your embodied condition has colored your mind, your dual mind. You see, then you go back into dualities. See, if you want to go back to your source, right, to unity, at least go back in harmony, see, so you can find unity again. So the evolution-involution teaching is very great, but it's penultimate to something else that's happening. This is the original perfect nature of your Atman, or your Buddha nature, we were just talking about Brahman. It's good to hear about Brahman, good to take teachings on Brahman, and better to meditate directly on Brahman, and finally to have that meditation in which all doubt dies away. So the fourfold mind we were talking about, the manas first, all doubt has to die away in it, about the non-dual nature of Brahman. So you can't just say, I'm not the body, and then call yourself a practitioner of Indian philosophy, you see, not anymore. That was an early teaching. You should have known that probably in the first place, see, before you took the body. But now you have to go, I'm not the mind either. And you're going to have to continue on with that fourfold complex. I'm not its thoughts. If I'm not the mind, I'm not its thoughts, because the thoughts would come out of the mind, of course. And if I'm not the mind, its thoughts, then I'm also not the buddhi, the intelligence, or the intellect in that compartment. See, that fourfold compartment. And I'm also not the ego, the ahamkara. So ego, intelligence, thoughts, and mind are a fourfold mind called antahakarana, the inner cause of everything. Their philosophy is the mind-only schools. So everything came out of the mind. But what existed prior to the mind was you. And your consciousness with a capital C. That got into the mental complex, and from the mental complex trickled down into all these things, right on down to air, earth, fire, water, and ether. It's marvelous the way Lord Kapila proposed that in early time, and teachers like Sri Krishna knew it from the very get-go, and were talking to us about it. I have three natures, you must say, he says. I have my air, earth, fire, water, and earth complex, you see, plus the mind. And then I have this inner nature called unmanifested prakriti, which is formless matter. And then I have my true nature. See? So there's like three great steps, almost like A-U-M. Om. Or projection, sustenance, withdrawal, or gross, subtle, causal. That's the involution process. You call it by any triputi you want. There's somebody write me just today from prison, a woman's prison, and asked me about that kind of inward moving process, and how to pigeonhole it, how to put your hand on it. And you're going to have some sort of visual, you see, out here. That's what's going to help you. And then you have to hear the words of the illumined preceptor, and then you have to take those and take them inside and what I would say, just recover that wisdom that you've forgotten. It's all in there. Somebody's just got to remind you because you've forgotten. Forgetfulness is the original sin of Vedanta. They call it avidya, ignorance. And remembrance is half the battle towards enlightenment. You see? So forgetfulness, remembrance. You see, talk about a great duality. There's one for you to think about. You see, how much have I forgotten? I'm not talking about superficial things or ordinary things like what did I have for dinner 2 weeks ago on Friday at 6 p.m. Those are things that just pass by, but the real essential things, things you don't want to forget, especially when you come into the body. Don't leave home without it. For us would be the Atman, see, not some piece of plastic that has a lot of purchasing power in it. You have this projecting power instead inside of the Atman, you see, and it uses the mind for that. But you're that Atman, you're not the mind, so it creates vessels for itself. And we teach the children that in SRV, and children who come to our classes, who just get a big, huge swimming pool full of water, like one of these little plastic swimming pools, right? And just put lots of containers of different shapes out there. And then you tell them to fill them, you see. And so fill a little thimble, and you fill a cup, and you fill a tumbler, and you fill a big glass. See, pretty soon you fill a vase, see, and you've got all these, you're pulling water from the main body, and the water conforms to the vessel, right? And it's a simple teaching. So this is how consciousness gets into various bodies. The thimble's an insect, and the glass is a lizard, and the cup is a dog, and so forth. And it goes on up to man, and finally you have these huge receptacles of consciousness. Ramakrishna used to explain that by saying, Some have never heard of milk. Some have heard of it but never tasted it. Others have heard it and tasted it, and some even own a dairy. So you've got these beings that have the whole access to the whole ocean of milk. You see, this milk ocean, Ekarnava, this ocean of essence. And those are beings that have realized both the limitations and the possibilities of the mind. There's another nice duality. See, we're always stumbling over pleasure and pain. Basically, that's it, or good and bad. If you begin to think a little bit, then you stumble over virtue and vice. See? If you get to be a higher thinker, you start to think life and death, you see, and you ponder that. You don't be afraid of death, and you try and make your life better, and so forth. Then if you think even higher than that, it's bondage and liberation, you see. And pretty soon you're going to see through the both of them. I can't get liberated because I was never bound, you see. I'm always liberated. I am liberation. My nature is freedom. See? So this is where Vedanta starts out. But it knows that most beings can't understand that or accept it at the level they're at. And their vessel might be a tumbler, see, a cup. It's not yet a vase. See? People used to complain to Sri Ramakrishna about that. Say, this container only holds, 2 seers of water. And they say, well, that's me, I can't hold anymore. She said, no, take that glass to a glass blower and have him heat it up and expand it. Then it'll hold 3 seers, you see. So you have to be expanding your vessel all the time. See. Apyantu mamanvani vak pranaschakshu shrotarmatra balamindriyani cha sarvani. May our bodies experience health, may our life force flow unimpeded, and may our minds expand in their capacity to know Brahman. You don't want to just expand it and fill it with numbers and facts and figures and call yourself learned and so forth, you see. Literate. Now I'm literate because I have all this nonsense running around in my head, you see. Sri Ramakrishna also said once, 2 men went to the temple at Jagannath to see the image. Great, famous image that everyone worships, you see. Millions of people go there. One man went in and saw the image and had a vision of God. The other man went in, saw the image, and just saw a lot of trash in his mind. So it wasn't really the image that was the thing. It was what condition his mind was in that allowed him to see what the image represented, right? Image can be anything to anyone. Holy Mother used to say that about temples, and you walk in and see the image and you feel holy and so forth, you see. But if a worldly person walks into a temple, the divine presence runs away from the image. It disappears. So the condition of the person who's moving about, that is the condition of your body-mind mechanism, and your life force has to be in fine and fetal shape all the time. That's the vigil you have to be on. So he gives you some 32 points in which to refine yourself. We've studied these for the last 4 weeks. And this 5th week, I can pretty much run it by for you because it's hard to keep track of. I was having a hard time keeping track of it until I wrote it down. But this last week, we added these to it. We looked at stiramataha. Stiramatihi, rather, it means steady-minded. We looked at that through one of the charts. We looked at samaha satrau cha mitre. You must be the same to friend and foe. Friend, foe, and arbiter, sometimes he says. Neutrals. You must be the same to all of them. Show the same face. Sama darshitvam. Know that the same Atman's in everyone, but it's just manifesting to more or less degree in front of you, you see, because of the limitation of those vessels that were dipped into that water. You see. Get yourself a better vessel next time if you want to know more. You see. Expand your mind with the scriptures. You come into this world with the Dharma in your mind, and then you never have these problems that people are having nowadays, that you hear all the time about, that are broadcast in the newspapers and through the media. And you stay away from situations that are not good for you, just by natural means. You see, you're protected. The devotees have long known that this invisible protection lies around them. Whether they're huddling in a group with the Romans hunting them, or whether they're banding together in any other age or any other time, they have this protection of the Divine Mother around them. And we also looked at apamanyoho, same in honor and dishonor, he says. So it's not just the friend and foe, but the words you're hearing too have to remain equal to that. See, if somebody praises you or someone insults you, it's the same to you. Sri Ramakrishna took a gold coin and a piece of earth, dirt clod, you say, and looked at them both and said, earth is gold, gold is earth, and threw them both in the river. He actually sat down one day and did this practice. And so it'd show us that it's just all earth. Why are you putting more value on one than the other? Actually, the dirt clod's more valuable to the farmer than the gold. See? So, especially when there's nowhere to cash the gold in, or you're living in an age where food is gold, you see. So you have that kind of equal-mindedness about everything again. And we talked about sama dukkha sukha, same in pleasure and pain. So that was one of those dualities that people stumble over. Pleasure, pain, good, bad. Those are the first two dualities you think about, really. If you think at all. If you're just subject to them and don't think about them, then you're just being led around by Maya, by a nose ring, or worse. But if you begin to think about your pleasure and your pain, you see, then you'll read the Gita, and Krishna says, what you want, what is painful in the beginning and pleasurable at the end, that's what you want. What is pleasurable in the beginning turns painful at the end. You don't want that. And most people are looking for the pleasurable, right? And our whole society is based upon that face. Oh, this is good for you. But it's not really good for you at all. Not good for your spiritual life, and your spiritual life is eternal. And it's been covered. There's been a robbery in my house, see, as one song in India sings, see. So you can't accept wooden nickels and so forth. You have to go for the real thing, the real article. When you see a sage or a seer, you're looking at the real article. You're looking at God face to face. You must become aware of that. See God in one another then. So any one of these teachings can bring up a whole host of things to think about, and that's up to you to do that. You have to train your mind to do that. And pretty soon, and I can attest, you'll be driving around or walking around, and you won't be everything will be going by you, clouds and trees and wind and animals and people and traffic and whatever it is. Your mind will just be thinking of the teachings. That's all. If something happens out there, it'll immediately perk a teaching in you see. Oh, I remember that teaching from such and such, you see, from such and such a scripture, from such and such a seer or saint or teacher. And it takes the shine off of what is fake, see. And it takes the angst and pain out of what is negative, see, by keeping your mind one-pointed like that. It doesn't shift anymore. There's no deviation. But you have to make a determinate effort, you see, in your mind to focus it on that essence, on that one essence. And nothing else, you see. His mind concentrates on Brahman and nothing else gets Brahman, as the Upanishads say. You're going to have to spend some time like they did for 40 days or 50 days in the wilderness or under the bo tree or in the desert or on the mountaintop, to teach the mind about its true nature. And give it up, because if the ego is part of the mind, the ego is going to have to dwindle, right? Because as long as the ego is blown up, then the mind's not going to be able to become one-pointed. It's not going to be able to see itself, its true self. I've often said, it's like blow up a balloon inside of this room, and you're outside of it, you can't get in, but the room's empty, see? The ego's like that. It's just like blowing up this little membrane, this full of hot air, you see. And it won't let anything else in, even though there's plenty of room in there. So it happens to keep out your noble virtues and keeps out God, both with form and beyond form. Keeps out the teachings, you see. So you can't allow that. Just get a penknife, you see. Poke it, walk into the chamber of your mind and know yourself. I looked into the mind, this is a Christian saying, I looked into the mind and I saw there both wisdom and folly. I like it, see. That's the duality. I saw there both wisdom and folly. But then I saw that folly, that wisdom far outstripped folly. So I put her on my head like a crown and became joyful. One of the apostles of the apostles of Jesus said that. So this is about Mother Wisdom, you see. I saw the mind had both, you see. But a lot of people would tend to look into their mind and see this folly and immediately blame themselves. Oh, I'm worthless. But they don't know that the mind contains wisdom and folly, good and bad, virtue and vice, pleasure and pain, karma and akarma. It has all these as a natural result. It contains those. That's how the universe got projected from it. You see all good and all bad here? Has anyone seen all good or all bad here? You've always seen an admixture. And sometimes good gets the upper hand, and other times bad gets, and it's always cycling, it's always changing. So see that as Maya, and then back off from it, and then find a determinate place to position yourself in which to observe all of this as passing phenomena. See? And do it for lifetimes if you need to. Go into the wilderness if you need to. And know the truth, and the truth will set you free. You have to know the truth not just about yourself, but you have to know the truth about the world too. That it's full of dualities and full of suffering. I mean, is there anyone here that doesn't know Buddha's first noble truth? There is suffering. Well, sukha dukkha, that's what we were just talking about, you see. It's not just suffering here, but it's sukha too. It's happiness. So happiness and sorrow go together. That is, happiness is a kind of suffering. It's like, sugar substitutes. You might as well eat the sugar to get the real thing. At least your mind will say, oh, I had real sugar. See? But now you've taken all these substitutes, you see, and eaten them instead of sugar. So I don't eat sugar anymore. Oh yeah, but you've got all these chemicals running through you see. So you have to know what's the line of demarcation between these teachings, and know that it's not to give you one over the other that they're given in the Dharma. It's so that you can transcend both. Good is a gold chain, iron is bad is an iron chain. See. Good and bad are chains that hold, one of iron, one of gold. So you have to get the non-dual position. So there are people who have been given this non-dual position in a few words. Oh, I get it. I'm divine. This is perfect. I have it. But then their actions run counter to their thoughts. See? They don't get it at all. And they won't get it until they apply the same status to the world as they apply to Brahman, and the same status to your enemy as you apply to your friend, you see. You've got to have that kind of evenness about it all. Know that there's one consciousness in everything, and it's wearing different masks, or it has different karmas, or its form isn't as advanced as other forms. Well, that's why you would love a baby, for instance. Basically, it's worthless, isn't it? No intelligence whatsoever developed in it. And it's got lots of hidden evils in it, in its mind. See? It's got good and bad in its mind. It's not a clean slate. It's bringing forth from other lifetimes everything it was back then. And here you are stroking it and loving it. Well, that aside, it's a limited vehicle. It's got to grow yet. It's got to transform. It's got to gain higher knowledge. It has to be able to even walk on two legs, you see. But it makes you love it all the more, right? Because it's so precious, you see. And it needs your protection and so forth. You have to begin to feel that way about your true nature too. You know, you have to bring it out of you in ways that are subtle like that. You see, and we'll talk a little bit about ahimsa today, because one of them we haven't got to yet is nonviolence. Be nonviolent to others. I have a chart on that. So same in pleasure and pain, and we also looked at Shubha Ashubha Parityagi. Shubha Ashubha Parityagi, renounced of good and evil. So your actions too. See, you can't just be a do-gooder, but you can't do evil either. You see, both of those one is better than the other, no doubt, like virtue and vice. But you want to transcend both, because where there's good, there is evil. That is, if you're thinking I'm good, and I've been good for a long time, evil is just waiting to get in. And you're supposed to resist it not, too. You see, so there's all these teachings about these dualities that come forth in different ways, that the main point is that you want to learn how to handle them. I'd say handling is transcending myself. Mastery is transcendence, not involved. You don't get involved with them. Oh, I think I'll be good all the time now. Good luck with that, you see. In a world that's mixed, in a mind that's mixed, with actions that are mixed, and with results that are always mixed, because you can do good actions all the time and you can continue to have repercussions come back on you which are unsavory, you see. How is that? See, it's not fair, right? Not just. So, in that way, mastery is transcendence in Vedanta. And when you can get beyond both good and evil, and pleasure and pain, and censure and praise, and life and death, that's where you find yourself. That's where yourself has always been, beyond phenomena, beyond change. You hear it all the time, but you have to put it together with some very simple dharmic teachings. I could say I think some of this hinges on morality, but its suggestion is beyond morality. What it suggests is beyond morality. Morality will focus upon be good, and so forth. But this is pointing out that there's good and evil, and you need to transcend them both. That's the difference, in a nutshell, between morality and dharma. See, it's a different trajectory. It's a different perspective your mind's going to take, has to take, in order to get mastery and transcendence and illumination. Because we're not seeing good people get enlightenment. See? We're seeing transcendent people get enlightenment. They're unique souls that have got some different alchemy going on there, philosophically speaking. What else do we look here? Two more. Harsha, Amarsha, Bhaya, that's fear. Udvegai muktihi. Mukti is liberation. Completely free from joy, envy, fear, and anxiety. So we looked at that. And we also looked at the last one. Na hrishati, na dvesti, na sochati, na kankshati. Nice, rolls right off the tongue in Sanskrit. Neither rejoices, hates, grieves, nor desires. So there it is again, you see. I can understand the last three, a moral person would say. You see, I shouldn't hate, probably shouldn't grieve if I can help it, and my desires are not always so good. But why can't I rejoice? I'll watch every television movie ever made about people in trouble. And what do they do right after they get out of trouble? They rejoice. They didn't learn a thing. Let's party, right? They don't know that that evil cycle just went away for a second and it's going to come back on them because everything's cyclic. So they're not preparing for the next eventuality. Right? So when death happens to you, you're not preparing for your next life. And when life happens to you, you're not preparing for death. And you're not coming to the knowledge that you have to transcend them both, go beyond both life and death. And even go beyond rebirth. You don't know anything about rebirth yet. So you bring a third teaching into it. Life, death, rebirth. See. So that's why he says, don't rejoice, because you're not even minded anymore when you rejoice, are you? They say sometimes about a great soul that they're like a big ocean, and that all sorts of joy comes their way, and this joy is likened to elephants, and they're all plunging into the ocean. But the ocean just doesn't even feel it, right? An elephant going to an ocean, the ocean doesn't even feel it. So these great souls are like huge oceans of bliss. So a little bit of joy comes along. Are they going to rejoice? So there's also that perspective too, you see. It's not just that I shouldn't rejoice because I am not being ready and I'm not on vigil for the next negativity that's headed my way. It's that you're missing both of them, you see. Or you're suffering both of them, as the case may be, by not knowing your true nature as blissful, as eternally blissful. And that's why they sit there, you see, and weep for no reason, or laugh for no reason, or go into a transcendent reality. Eyes roll up in their heads and they're gone, you see. They're out of their senses. Their breath stops. Skin horripulates. Hair stands on the end of their arms, you see. Chikan skin in the spiritual sense. Chikan skin, we say here in Hawaii. It's pidgin. So you get that feeling of elevation, of inspiration, inward ascension. See? All right, so there. We took 4, 6, 8, 11, 19 of these in 4 classes. Now we're going to move on towards those that are left here. And a good way to start with that is just to begin with what we ended with last week. Just refresh ourselves about this chart that was the golden rules to sadhana. Now we talked about morality and we talked about dharma. It's hard to talk about dharma without including the word sadhana, because just like morality, you can hear that in church and you can try and be good and, you know, virtue and vice and all of that, and beware of the devil and so forth. But when you talk about dharma, you're trying to get beyond these dualities. But you can hear morality in the church, but still go out and take holy water and do all those things, but still go out and be the same person. It's not just in Christianity we're talking, but Sri Krishna used to say that if a Hindu goes to the Ganges, you know, and dips, then that gets rid of all their sins. But he said, for the basic Hindu, they'll go to the river and these sins are hanging on them like vultures, you see. As soon as they get into the river, the vultures fly away, see, so they come out pure. As soon as they get a few steps in the river, the vultures come back and perch on their shoulders again, see. So the vulture sees the Ganges River, which is God, and goes away, but as soon as you come out of the Ganges River, they come back. So the solution would be then is to, you know, come out pure and remain pure. Stay on vigil, you see. Bring a little bit of Ganges water with you, you see. Show it to those vultures when they come near, you see. Because even a drop, they say, is very powerful. It's holy water. All right, so that is a kind of introduction, but then you say Dharma is the same way. If you just hear the Dharma, Shruti, you say, Om Shrutihe Shatagunam Vijjan Mananam Mananarapi Nidijasana. So if you just hear the Dharma but don't act on it, you see, then that's also not going to be the best for you. You need to act on it. Then the acting on the Dharma is this sadhana that you're going to do. Now most sadhana in terms of India is, since it's a mind-only school, is done in the mind. The real transformative sadhana is done in the mind. It's not done on the Hatha Yoga floor with asana. Well, it's not done sitting, breathing, see. Because those things are very limited in their ability to purify you. You might be able to teach the body good position, and you can control your breath, good for you. But most sadhana of an intense kind is done here. And a lot of people don't realize this for a long time. Even people who aren't preoccupied with physical yoga don't realize that. See, they go ahead and learn the scriptures and have a guru and so forth, but they don't realize that that sadhana is done in the mind. In other words, they're walking around thinking, I have to go and do some austerity. See? I have to go somewhere and do something. But no, you don't have to go a step, except here, you see. You have to deal with what's inside of you. If you bring out what is inside of you, what you bring out will be very good for you. If you don't bring out what is inside of you, what you don't bring out will be very bad for you. That's another Christian saying. So you have to work with what's in there, you see. And there's even a song in India that says that, "Oh mind, you don't have to go one step outside your door. You'll be taught everything. You'll be chastised and you'll be taught every little thing by just remaining at home." So you have to kind of come to know that everything has risen from the mind, and since it has, everything mixed has come from the mind, and it's both outer and it's come from the inner. So in the involution process, you go back and you inspect your mind. See a clean white sheet of paper, right? Don't look at this side. Clean white sheet of paper. Krishna says if you hold it up and, to the light, all of a sudden you see all the dark specks in it. Well, that's what he meant by inspecting the mind. Looks like my mind's in pretty good shape today, see? But hold it up to the light of meditation, or even hold it up to the light of the world, and you'll see all the imperfections there in it. And then you have to go and pick those out, you see. And that was the one piece of advice I got from our founder, NSRV, that stuck with me a long time. Is he says, how do we do our sadhana? He said, you just have to go inside your mind and find every abnormality, every little problem, every brooding, that is in there, and you have to expose it to the light of the teachings. See? Bring the teachings in the door. That's why Sri Ramakrishna said, you can go into a cave that's dark for 1,000 years, you see, but if you bring a torch in, it doesn't take the darkness 1,000 years to go away. See? So the mind is rather like that. It's got 1,000 lifetimes of darkness in it, mixed with other things. But if you bring the light in, it's not going to take 1,000 lifetimes to go away. You can get enlightened in this very lifetime by bringing the light of these teachings in and subjecting those normalities to that light, you see. So we talked about this golden rules at the level of Dharma, but also at the level of sadhana. So if I were just to say, pick a few of these. Let's see here. What we looked at just before we closed class last week was this whole transformation of mind list, right? If I looked there and I saw some of the most important ones right away to me would be effort to awaken and reveal your memory so that you can bring about recollection of your true nature. So you would go in and you would think about, put yourself in a space in your mind to let all memory come back to you, you see. And there might be a period where there's a lot of voices, a lot of noise, you see. But then that will, if you watch long enough and listen deep enough, then that will go away, and you'll begin to have these recollections of samskaras. So they're sort of like echoes coming back at you from a distant time. And it's not much different than dream work, but it's better than dream work in that you're doing it in a conscious state. And in dream, you're usually not. Yes, you'll have some conscious dreams, but in meditation, sitting there examining your dreams, for instance, or examining your mind, the quieter and more peaceful you can get the mind, the more these echoes will come back, and you'll be in a wide awake state in order to see them, you see. It's not like dreaming where they'll go away. You'll have a little wisp of dream. It'll seem real to you. Then that will end. Then who knows how much time later, a minute or an hour, another train of dream comes up and that goes away. So you don't know where it came from and how it went away. But when you're sitting in meditation examining the inside of your mind, you do know how much time has passed generally, and you're conscious of what, and you can note it down. See? So I'd say that was a very important one. Another one here that I think is very important is Kala Shakti. Develop the skill of sacred sound and scripture. One of the very last slokas of the Gita, Sri Krishna says. In fact, maybe I can even go to it. This may take too long because there's so many pages in this version, but he has to say something very profound to Arjuna at the end. And he says, there shall be none among men more dear in service to me than that one who gives these teachings. The one who will study this sacred dialogue of ours, that one will have worshipped me by Jnana Yoga, such is my conviction. So that's right at the very end of the Bhagavad Gita. So you're talking about Jnana Yoga, right? You're talking about a sacrifice you do, or a worship that you do, of examining these teachings, see? And by that way you do the Gita and Sri Krishna the best service. That one who does this renders me the highest of all yogas, Jnana Yoga. So you get in touch with the being, and you get in touch with the teaching, and you get in touch with the scriptures. So that's why I say Kala Shakti here, very important. Development of skill in sound, in sacred sound and scripture. So listen to the words, that's Shruti, right? So you're hearing the words come from the lips of an illumined soul, like I did with my teacher, Swami Sheshanandaji. And if you have the right mental attitude about that, then this is scripture coming straight from him, straight from the source, you see. So that's very important to develop that kind of skill, otherwise you won't recognize truth when it's told you. See? That is higher truth. It may even become difficult to recognize lower truth from fiction. But this higher truth comes with discrimination. So it's very important to do that. So just as a way of saying, there are some facets in these golden rules that you can look back on and use for this inspection of your mind. This has to be a conscious and willing inspection. It's not something lackadaisical you do. Oh, I think I'll try that, you see. That's kind of experimental. But you have to have some sort of courage of your convictions that you know, these are golden rules of spiritual life. And you had golden rules of educational life in grade school and so forth in high school, and hope you learned those well. That's morality again. But they're also the same here in spiritual life. And you have to look at those and take them at face value. See that this will be very good for my inner life. And since inner life is so subtle and so difficult to get a hold of and put your finger on, then you're going to have a determinate state of mind to search these things out and apply them to you. You see, you have to be able to walk away from your meditation, you see, with something in hand from that. Each day you do it, see, and keep it in mind. It's strengthening your, it's looking back into your memory to strengthen your present state of mind. But keep hold of what you learn. That's a problem for a lot of people, right? I went to school and I only learned, I only maybe got 10% of what I was told, see. But what you want to do is, of course, filter out what you don't need, but the essential things, you want to implement that, see, and keep hold of it. It's got to be, your resilient, retentive memory has got to shore you up every day of your life, see. And then you'll be walking around observing everything without, in an even-minded, steady-minded state all the time. Somebody even told me that woman who wrote from prison, I said, in the part of that letter, that message she wrote, said that she asked me about sacred sound. That's why I'm kind of bringing this up today. And said, here in prison there are all sorts of sounds echoing down the halls, and they're all horrible. People are yelling and screaming, and there's not one good sound anywhere. That's what she told me. So how do I deal with that? You see? So she's going to have to become so centered in these studies, which she has been doing for a long time, that she can just block all of that out. See? It's like background. And why not? Because you can go out and walk in nature and you hear lots of sounds, and they don't necessarily ruin your sojourn in nature, you see. So as long as you put an emphasis on them, they're going to come forward. So you need to de-emphasize them, you see. That's really what detachment is. And detachment can also happen on the level of sound, right? And you want to bring forward the hidden sounds and the obvious positive sounds, and you just want to take the others to the background, not listen to them anymore. So it's up to you to do that, and you can. Now, another thing he says here is to go on into our teachings is this teaching of satatam, and it's meditation. So he wants you to have this very strong study, be very steady in meditation, rather. See it here? And for that, I brought this chart on meditation and prayer that we can look at. And the way I set this up was there are benefits to meditation, and there are also limitations, even cautionary measures about meditation. Because we're looking at both good and bad, and positive and negative, right? And if we have to get beyond good and evil, then we may have to be very careful about different kinds of meditation out there that our mind gets into. There's even meditations where you'll sit blank for 30 minutes, and you'll come back and say to your teacher, was that samadhi? No, you just went blank, is the answer. See, that's called wandering mind. It's pointed out by the father of yoga as being one of the problems as going blank in your meditation. Samadhi is superconsciousness, you see, and so it's going to be intensely focused and aware of light, aware of the nature of truth and so forth. It's going to be very unmistakable, and it'll bring bliss too, this ananda they talk about, you see. So in that case, there are benefits about meditation and also caution. Same with prayer, advantages to prayer and disadvantages to prayer. Since this has come up so often in my 40 years of teaching Vedanta and yoga and so forth, I wanted to make a chart on it, and so I did a year or two ago, and it comes up nicely with this idea of meditation here, satatam, see, and how to be steady in it, steady in meditation. This will help us. So first of all, a quote here: both prayer and meditation are crucial to spiritual life. The former, that is prayer, connects the soul to its ideal in form, called the ishtam, and the latter establishes the aspirant in formless reality, called Brahman. So when you pray to the ishtam. You're not praying to Brahman. Nobody can pray to God. That's tongue-in-cheek when you hear that. God has no ears. God is not in the realm of form. God has no duality to it whatsoever. When we say the word God, we mean Brahman, non-dual reality. And there's no forms there, there's no heaven, earth, hell there. It's the wide open space of your pure conscious awareness. It's just think of an ocean of light, or a sorrowless ocean of light. Sometimes that's how the father of yoga described it. Ashoka Jyotishmata, a sorrowless ocean of light, he called it. Or think about a sun and how it shines all the time, doesn't have any other source to borrow from. You can take metaphors in nature and so forth and think about that to understand it. So when you're praying to God, you're praying to Saguna Brahman, or you're praying to Ishtam, that is, a chosen ideal in form. Best of those are Jesus for the Christians and Buddha for the Buddhists, and Krishna would be a great one for the Hindus, although the Hindus have lots of ideals, of Shiva too, and Divine Mother and so forth. So you're going to pray to God with form. And so that's going to help your prayer and your meditation both. Now it says here, when you engage in meditation, that establishes you in formless reality. So it's not like there aren't lower levels of meditation that you encounter the Ishtam. That's true also. But meditation's ultimate goal is for nirvikalpa, or nirguna. It's beyond attributes, it's beyond phases of time, and it's beyond mental projections. Nirvikalpa, it doesn't have any kalpas going on. Vikalpas or sankalpas from the mind. There's no projections of the mind there. See? So when you arise to that, that's highest meditation. That's best for the formless reality. And you can put yourself there in that formless reality. The Zen Buddhists do it, the Advaita Vedantists do it, and any practitioner who wants to, as Shankara said, for instance, take the mind and, like a hailstone, and drop it in an ocean. See, it wants to get beyond form, because form has all these limitations and restrictions. Now, I would give away too much if I keep talking in that vein, because we want to see the actual points as they come up. I was about to go into some of the problems of prayer. Now, to finish the quote, the danger common to both is selfishness. For the ego mars prayer and meditation as if there is the slightest sense of unripe individuality or personal gain associated with their respective practice. So, both in prayer and in meditation, the ego is a problem. See, and therefore, its concerns are at paramount. See? And I would say that happens definitely at the lower level of the ego, but it even happens at the higher level of the ego called enlightenment. I want enlightenment. That's a big problem for getting into formless meditation. Why is it? Well, it's kind of hard to explain, but the way sometimes the Zen masters or the Advaita Vedantas say is that by wanting this enlightenment so much, you're going against the precepts that the soul is always enlightened. You think there's something to gain. So the Tibetans looked at that really deeply, like Milarepa and others who say that there's no, like the Mahamudra and so forth, there's no enlightenment there to gain. There's no enlightenment beyond to gain, and there's no samsara here to renounce. See? Both of those are another one of these grand dualities. And so you haven't entered into your practice, and by the way, we could go right back here and read this quote. There are two great problems to spiritual practice, right? We took it last week. First, it's helpful to know that spiritual practice will not net you freedom. See? So it's kind of dichotomous hippopotamus, you see. Because you're already free, but your mind doesn't know it. And so you have to engage in spiritual practice so the mind can clear up, so you'll know that you're always free. I mean, that's probably as direct as you could put it. The mind that your consciousness is right now inhabiting, or that vessel that you dipped into water, you see, is not that expanded yet. It's got its karmas and some samskaras and so forth in it. So it's going to be very necessary then to expand that mind so that it can go beyond these limitations and then can see itself. See? And to do that, sadhana is the main thing. See? And part of your sadhana then is going to be meditation and prayer. Those two can go together. So this unripe sense of individuality has to go. Now with that, actually with those two thoughts, then let's look at some of these benefits to meditation. First, meditation bestows objectivity on the seeking mind. Second, it hones the power of right discrimination. Third, it increases the ability for mature detachment. Fourth, it introduces the subtle presence of non-duality. Meditation is good for that. Like I said, you'll start off meditating with a sense of duality. There's me, and there's the meditator, and then there's what's meditated upon, you see. So that's going to pose a subtle barrier for a while, but it does eventually expose you to a higher experience of non-duality, the open space beyond all religion, our founder used to call it. So you'll get a taste of that, and you'll come back to duality again. And you'll take the teachings, which is qualified non-duality, and you'll use them to get to non-duality again and back. And so you'll have to make a few rushes, or how they say, forays at that gate, you see, that higher echelon, and try and break through the gate of non-duality. It also ushers in an incomparable state of samadhi. We know from the 8-limbed yoga that meditation is the 7th limb, dhyan. But then there's an 8th limb called samadhi. So meditation is good for introducing us to our true nature as samadhi, that is, pure conscious awareness. These samadhis, again, have different levels as we studied. Yoga has, everything from savitarka to nirvitarka, and savicharaj to nirvichara, sananda, sasmita, and finally it gets through the seated states of samadhi to an unseated state. We've looked at that before in yoga a lot, in accordance with the 6th, 7th, 8th limbs of yoga: concentration, meditation, and samadhi. When you're focusing on those, then you're beginning to have, or that is, if you've attained what the teachers want you to attain by practicing them, sadhana, then you will start to have these lower samadhis. And the first of them are usually these wisdom samadhis. That's why Jnana Yoga, as Krishna was saying, is so important. You want to worship the Lord with Jnana Yoga. When the Lord, let's call it the mother here, when the mother sees you're ready with intelligence, it's very easy to get you into samadhi. A person with intelligence, that is higher intelligence, can get into samadhi easily. I mean, we saw that in Vivekananda and Ramakrishna and so forth. Samadhis were coming quite often. So their ignorance had been destroyed by wisdom, you see. It's not like, their ignorance had been destroyed by lower knowledge. It had been destroyed by higher knowledge, because there's plenty of ignorance mixed in higher knowledge, in lower knowledge right now, isn't there? It's like these lower systems are never coming to a conclusion. Astronomy, mathematics, and so forth. They can just lead on circular fashion, you see. But when you get to higher wisdom, it puts all doubts to death, you see. And you know the truth, and the truth will set you free. That's its promise, and that's its ability to do that for you, to arrive at this highest samadhi. That's the point of life. See, that's the real meaning of life, is to have that non-dual experience and realize that you are it. I am that, or that thou art, or I am my Father, or one, however you want to put that. So those 5 things are benefits to meditation. Now, how about the cautions or limitations to meditation? Meditation can imbalance the mind if initially overused. So they want you to do it, under the auspice of a teacher who gives you a certain regimen and a certain time period in which you can do it, so that you don't overtax the brain. There may be times when you can sit easily for a long time, and other times when meditation just will not come to you no matter how long you sit. So it's not good to force the mind into meditation. Holy Mother used to say that. But that doesn't mean you give up your sadhana. You use that time for meditation to put your mind on the scriptures, she said. So you don't stand up from your morning meditation and say, "Oh, I can't do it today. She said I didn't have to. I shouldn't force my mind." And therefore you don't do your daily sadhana, you see. So you have to be discriminating, but you also have to be clear with yourself. See, well, if I can't sit, then I'll pick up the Gita, you see, and I won't be able to meditate. But maybe if I read a little bit, that will put me in the atmosphere for meditation, you see. And then I can put down the scripture and continue on, and my mind will be changed. So you have to be willing to change this mind. I'm saying that in a good sense. Oh, they're always changing their mind, they say, you see. That's in the negative sense. But to transform the mind, so that to open it up for these waves of bliss, for these teachings, that's a very good thing. It's a very good thing to know how to do. See, and it'll make it spiritual life so much easier for you. So don't overuse meditation at first. It can contribute to the growth of the spiritual ego. You see that in young meditators, even in people who've meditating for a long time. They feel like, they're better than everyone else because they have a meditation practice. Or maybe they've had a few visions, you see. So you have to be very careful of that, because that's nowhere near enlightenment yet where you have that kind of ego in the way. We've already talked about the ego and how problematic it can be. So you want to make sure to ripen it, as Sri Ramakrishna would say. Or, just diminish it. So it gets like that balloon we're talking about. Just deflate it so that other things besides itself can show itself. Now, also may lull the mind into a habit of complacency. And that's where this periods of blankness in meditation go on. You're trying to meditate, and one day you'll be very focused, and other days you'll actually be having troubles. Sometimes you're burning up karmas when you're having troubles in meditation. But other times you'll just be kind of blank and nothing much is happening. So you have to be kind of careful of that and not fall into a habit of that. That's a habit of complacency. Also says here, might disturb or stymie the path of action. Because we know in terms of Purna Yoga, there's 4 yogas, right? Pretty much 2 of them are the antithesis, apparently, of the other. Jnana and Bhakti. Knowledge and devotion seem to be sort of at odds with each other. They shouldn't be, but that's the way it's proposed, you see. Then you have the other 2 yogas, meditation and action, and those are definitely opposed to each other, until you can somehow meditate during action and make action a meditation, you see, which is a very high art. So in that way, if you look at that particular facet there, you have to make sure that your meditations don't rob you of the ability to go out and act. In fact, they should really be making you better at work, better at karma yoga. So that's going to be important. Become a better karma yogi or yogini because your meditations every day are balancing you out, balancing your mind, so you can keep balanced in the field of action because you've mastered meditation. Pretty soon it's just a matter of applying it. Sometimes I use that as an example for myself too. When I learned how to play an instrument, and then concentrated on it, then I could use that same concentration I used in music for meditation, I found. So that facet of dharana, it's called, concentration, is very important in that'll help get you to meditation and samadhi. It's that 6th limb, dharana. So try and use that in the path of action. Then 5th and finally, it can keep the meditator from full realization. That is, meditation can eventually act as a restriction. I am meditating instead of becoming the meditation, immersing yourself completely in meditation without that ego in the way. Sri Ramakrishna says here in a quote, "Do you know what authentic meditation is like? One thinks that of nothing else but God. The mind becomes like oil flowing easily into a pure receptacle." So that's actually in the scriptures too. It's called Taila Dharajyan, where you take oil in one beaker and pour it into another beaker. that's empty, you see. And that's just that oil flows in such a symmetrical way. There's no splashing or anything. It's just a pure rainbow arc, from one into the other. So Sri Ramakrishna liked that way of thinking. The mind is this beaker full of oil, you see, that you've refined. And you want to pour it all into Brahman in a non-dual meditation. So you empty all the contents of mind, ego, thoughts, and intellect into Brahman, and it's just empty yourself out. See. And that emptiness is what the Buddhists cherish. They call it shunyata, right? So that's a good thing to achieve. So there's some benefits and cautions about meditation. Let's look at, and pretty much we are talking about satatam here, that is here, steady in meditation. This one facet deserves some look because it's a very powerful facet of yoga. Let's look at prayers now. Advantages of prayer. It establishes a connection with Ishvara. Okay, so you may not have known about Ishvara before, that there's a chosen ideal in form that you can take. Of course, people into religion are doing that naturally, but other people who are not into religion trying to find an ideal to meditate on. So they need to start with something. That at the beginning they can start with a stone statue of Buddha or an obelisk or something. You see a little piece of an image or an idol. It's called a pratika or a pratima. And that steadies your mind and focus on that. And then you can take higher and higher ishtams. You see the image in the temple or the God with form in your mind, Ishvara. That can become a higher and higher level of ideal for you. So you're meditating outward to begin with, and it's taking you inward to subtler and subtler levels of form, till you get to subtle and causal form. So back into deep sleep and so forth, dream and deep sleep. So you always have a guide for that. Swami Vivekananda and Jesus both said that. When you're in form, you need a guide, you see. Now, number 2, it helps in the development of peace of mind. So prayer who hasn't had that experience where, they just felt like they had to talk to God. So they sat down outside or inside or wherever one day, maybe in the midst of some trial or whatever, and they just began to talk and talked inwardly and prayed and so forth. And again, if the ego isn't in the way and if it's not asking for things, then you're all right, you see. You've got a connection with that inner deity, so it's not a selfish or ego-based kind of action. So you'll find out that even if you don't establish contact with the ideal as far as a vision goes, that you'll come back out of your prayer and you'll feel more peaceful for doing it. So that's a facet of introspection. See, they call it contemplativeness. You see, if you're a contemplative monk, for instance, then you have a lot of deep prayer going on with your ishtam. And that doesn't have anything to do with the world and asking for things and all that, but it's focused through the form of God, like getting to the Father through the Son, you see. And so it's focused inward like that. Third, it strengthens faith in the chosen ideal. So if you have a chosen ideal and you've selected one, then by prayer you can increase that faith, because pretty soon you find out that all your prayers are being answered, sometimes without even having to pray. Things are coming to you unasked, as it were, and things that maybe you even didn't remember to ask for are being fulfilled. And impediments are being removed without your knowing it. Meditation can do that too. Sometimes you meditate and you have these difficult meditations, but then you find out your whole state of mind has gotten better later, and it must have had to do with that meditation you went through. So that's the important thing about sadhana, is you just engage in it, no matter what. You just do it, as they say. You see. But you do it with these guidelines. Like, for instance, not too long at first, and so forth. Have this kind of regimen you can follow in it. And pretty soon the faith in your chosen ideal can get strengthened, and you feel like there's no difference between yourself and that ideal. They're one and the same, like Hanuman felt about Sri Ram. See? Now, it affords communion with God with form, as meditation would introduce you to God without form, beyond form that is. Then you'll see that prayer will give you communion with God with form. It's very good for that. And it also leads naturally to direct meditation on God. So here's where the two fuse together, is that you'll maybe want to start having these prayers and this communion, and then all of a sudden there will be a connection, and this slight sense of difference will disappear, and you'll have a non-dual meditation with the Ishtam. So that Ishtam is really meant for that, ushering you through form into formlessness. Sometimes I've told you that Ram and others, have the Om sign, Sanskrit Om symbol in their hand, and that signifies formlessness. You see, the protection. This mudra is called protection. It's the Abhaya mudra, and then the Om sign signifies going beyond form. So you're taking Ishtam for your Ram for your Ishtam, your ideal. Meditate on Ram all the time. Then finally you come to meet Ram. You merge with Ram in that prayer, and that prayer turns into meditation, and that meditation puts you beyond form. So you get to the form, get to the Father through Ram. You get to Brahman through Ram, or through Krishna, or whoever your ideal is. See, yeah, you have to be a little bit flexible there. Haven't been raised that way in the West, especially in Christendom, but you have to be much more flexible than that in these traditions in India, because there are so many different pathways and so many different ishtams that people are taking. I mean, basically you can classify them as five. There are five great paths. You worship Shiva, or you worship Vishnu, which is Krishna, or you worship Mother, or you worship Ganapati, or you worship the sun, Surya. And so those are the five great paths in India, and different families are being born in them, and different people are finding their ishtams in them. Different devotees are worshipping through them. Different temples are based on those paths, on those ishtams. See, and the only problem with that becomes if they become, too alienated from one another, or begin arguing with one another about whose path is best. So you maybe have that in the West. You said, Christ is the only way. But you're talking about the West doesn't have any other ishtams. I mean, unless you're Jewish and you consider Moses an ishtam. But in India, you have a different kind of problem. It's that it's so wide open and eclectic and everything, but you have so many paths that they can begin arguing amidst themselves, you see. So that's why I say you have to remain a little bit flexible and even mercurial about your ability to shift between acceptance, you see, of all these different ishtams. They're all going to be one path, or one essence rather, just like those cups you dipped into water, right? They're all different shaped and hold different amounts and so forth, but they all contain one essence. So as long as you remember that rule of thumb, which is a non-dual truth, then you're fine among these ishtams, and you should also have your own. Sri Ramakrishna's great teaching on that is that the cows all out in the field, mixed indiscriminately, you'll see, in the daytime, but when the farmer brings them back in, they all get their own stall. See? So that's a very nice way he says about you coming home. So you're coming to your source. You all have different ishtams out there, and you should get along and graze, you see. Eat, you see, be merry and all that. But when you come back to the stall, that is when you may be in the field meditating, but when you come back to your home, you're going to be put in your own stall. So he knows that these ishtams are many, and they will guide people to their source through that. The source is indivisible and all-pervasive, and call it light again if you like, or sound, but in the ultimate sense of the terms. But basically there are many doorways to get through into that one essence. And one of them shaped like Buddha, and one's shaped like Krishna, and one's shaped like Christ, and so forth. And that will get you into that Almighty Father, or Allah, or Buddha nature, or Yahweh, and it will get you through there through satori, or through samadhi, or through nirvana, or through beatific vision. All of those things, again, you're remaining flexible around them. And here, in the sense of prayer, it can actually begin to connect you to deeper meditations again and again. I think that's its natural affinity to do so. If your prayer gets deep, meditation is at hand for you. It might be one of the great ways to get into a meditative state is through prayer. So there are other ways, as we know, concentration and that doesn't use prayer, you see. And sometimes doesn't even use the ishtam, because some people prefer formlessness to form, like, say, the Muslims and so forth. So, Zen Buddhists and all. So there will be other ways to do it, but it is one way in which it will lead you that direction. So we have just a few minutes left in this first half. Let's try and finish this chart up. The fifth one there is, advantage to prayer is that it leads naturally to direct meditation on God. And direct meditation on God is very beautiful. It reminds me of one of the few songs. There's not a lot of bhajans or so forth that talk about meditation, but every once in a while you'll find it you'll find it mentioned. Like in this beautiful piece, Ram Prasad sings, Kali, Kali Boshana, Kali, Kali Boshana, Pada Pada Bhan, Namamrita Bhan, Pada Pada Bhan, Namamrita Bhan, Kari Hate Pran Take Vashana, Kali, Kali Borashana, Kali, Kali Borashana. So Ram Prasad singing to Mother Kali, of course, and says, O blissful self, caught in this mundane diversions and vain pursuits, utter the sweet yet powerful name of Mother Kali, the divine mother of this entire universe. Grasp the non-dual knowledge of her wisdom feet with the strength of your subtle insight. Then meditate deeply on her all-encompassing, all-pervasive presence. That's basically what his first verse of the song is saying. He's talking to his mind. He says, "O blissful self." The self might as well be the mind. But it's become caught in this surface pleasures and thoughts and so forth. But now, grasp the wisdom of her non-dual wisdom, her non-dual feet. You see, her blissful feet, and then focus deep inside in meditation. So it's a very traditional but very beautiful way of proceeding. See, it's that first you find a teacher and you hear the teachings, shruti, you meditate on them, and then you save yourself from the surface existence, from superficial existence. And then you can be one of them. You can be one of those great souls that, like Jesus and Buddha and Gauranga and so forth, that there are these great powerful souls that are self-realized. You can dance and sing with them in deepest meditation, in your dreams too, you see. And become radiant meditations, as the song says. So that about prayer leading directly to meditation on God. Now, what are some of the disadvantages of prayer? Basically, it weakens the soul if it's based on gifts and boons. That's, of course, one of the complaints that most people have about prayer, is that when they see people doing it, it's always asking for something, you see, instead of it being wanting to align itself with divine reality. So get this deep peace and have a vision of the Ishtam. Also increases dependency on external powers. So we have to be very careful of the occult powers and praying for those. People have had a lot of setbacks in spiritual life because of their desire for powers, like domination or wealth and that kind of thing. It also fosters attachment to form, rites, and rituals. So those are something that you start out with, rites and rituals, but that you need to proceed beyond. So worship God with form is a good thing, and then prayer has got its place there. But you make sure that, like, say, the problems of the priestcraft sometimes revolve around that. They just stay pretty much in the temple, on the image, and that's it. So you're worshiping images all the time. Meanwhile, outside the temple, people are starving, as Vivekananda says, you see. So don't get stuck in rites and rituals. Go and find God, and use everything that you can to worship God in form, in living form, not just in rituals. Take it out into life. Fourth and penultimate, prayer maintains a sense of duality and dualism. So that is a subtle problem. So you'll have to be very careful about that. You want to get into a non-dual state in meditation. That's why meditation has all these benefits. Then you're going to have to put these together. And also it can cause forgetfulness of formless reality. That is, for some people, there's just nothing but form, even in divine form, in church, Ishtam and so forth. But what they're forgetting is that God is formless and God is transcendent. God is beyond nature. And so that can be a real problem for higher spiritual life. Now, to finish up this chart, let's read the final chant here, and it's by Holy Mother. It says, "A worldly woman once entered the shrine. Her husband was ill, and she came there to pray for his recovery. Instead of being prayerful and penitent, however, she had covered herself with perfume. Does this become one who comes before God? Ah me! Well, such is the nature of these modern people." So, important there that Holy Mother mentions that you have to become penitent in the presence of God. So you come into the temple, or you come before in spiritual life with your guru and your sangha and so forth, and you come in a very pure sense, all ready to receive that transmission of highest wisdom, and so you can have those deeper experiences. That's, of course, has to do with the problem of the ego getting in the way. It can get in the way in that untoward method too. You have to be very careful of it to keep it out of the way. So this chart here, brought to you by Sri Krishna and his teachings here around how to be steady in meditation, and also bringing in this method of prayer, which is so big in the West. To see that in the West some people are getting a meditative life, and so they're not restricting themselves just to prayer anymore. Find that maybe prayer has some limitations in it, especially when it's aimed at getting things or boons and so forth. So you put meditation to it, it puts in this impersonal side to things, which spiritual life is famous for. The emptiness or the nothingness, the beingness, the transcendence of formlessness and so forth. Those are all very important facets to a well-rounded spiritual life. So I see here that we're out of time for the first half, so we're going to take a break and come back in 15 minutes for the second half of our final class. And for that we will delve into these teachings of nonviolence that are mentioned here and look at the religion of Jainism in that respect. So here we will have our break. Thank you. Now, in the second half of the last of our classes on the Bhagavad Gita, in this particular series, where we're looking at the 32 points of the immortal Dharma, we want to look at ahimsa, and I have a coverall chart from Sri Krishna called Knowledge Knower and What is That Which Is to Be Known, which, if we go through it, will cover all the rest of these without us even knowing it. It's very expansive and general, but it has a lot of good teachings in it. So we will be able to finish this chart in this particular 5-series class. Now, where we ended up in the first half was looking at meditation and prayer, and I hope that was helpful to many of you who may have, even though you might have been meditating for decades and praying since you were a child, maybe still have some doubts or questions that are knocking around inside that got answered with that, because we're taking a positive and negative approach to both of them, not trying to hold one up over the other. It's just that in general, prayer works in the realm of form. Won't work in the realm of formlessness, as they say. But meditation is specific for that realm of formlessness, so you become the meditator. In fact, there's beautiful songs in India that we like very much, is that the lines start out,
Oh, meditator.
Oh, meditator, because she likes it so much, I'm going to let her say it. Oh, meditator, become the goddess. So at one point, Ramprasad has reached a state in his meditations where he can't keep himself separate anymore from his beloved. So whether you're talking about it in the form of bhakti, which is devotion, or jnanam, and how that path of discrimination removes all ignorance and you become one with that which you're meditating upon. Path of meditation, even in the path of action, people have said they've been plunged into deep states of non-duality, riding a bicycle or walking through a forest. All of a sudden, just plunged into a state of non-duality and taken up out of the world and out of the senses. So whatever the case may be in any given time or pathway, these two facets are very important, and so it's good to broach them in a chart on the immortal Dharma. Now, let's move on, just having said that much, in conclusion, to this penultimate chart we want to show around, and let me call up my version here. Some of these that haven't been checked off, we can check off steady in meditation now, so that's good. And we're now moving on to this one about ahimsa. Now, in this chart, I thought what I would do is just read some of the facets of it, because it's a big study. Now, in Jain scripture, there's a beautiful sloka that says, ahimsa, and we know that already now, right, to be non-violence, non-harming. Ahimsa is a goddess who supports all creatures. She is like water for the thirsty, food for the hungry, and medicine for the sick. She conduces to the well-being of all creatures, moving or immobile. So they're looking at, as is traditional in India, and we were just talking about it at the break, also, is that you're praying on Ishtam, there's a presence there that you're aware of, whether it's a presence that you associate with a form or it's a presence which is formless to you. Either one of those is acceptable and very good for you. And one can lead to the other, but the other will then lead back to the first. If you leave form in your meditation, you go into formlessness, then as Sri Ramakrishna said, a bird may fly high, but it needs a branch to come to rest on. So you're going to have to come back out of formlessness and rest on that branch of form. So you're leaving your body and coming back into your body. You're leaving your mind and coming back into your mind. And unless you leave your mind in a sense of nirvikalpa, that is, all seeds, or as Father of Yoga calls it, asampragyata, all seeds of the mind has been burnt and wiped out, and you're not going to come back to the body again, then you won't return to form. That's a very rare state. But they say if you have an experience like that, you won't stay in the body more than 11 days. And so those are, of course, very high reaches of samadhi that are described in Indian philosophies. Sri Ramakrishna experienced that. Of course, he had the ability to come back into form. And some of his direct disciples also, he called them Ishvarakotis. They had the ability to gather their mind back from this highest meditation. But when the mind really goes completely formless and merges with this, with the ultimate idea, which is Brahman, formlessness, the light of pure conscious awareness, or timeless, deathless awareness, then it probably won't come back. Sort of like a moth going into a bonfire. There's just nothing left to come back from. And it'll have that very high experience. Until then, and then there is this coming in and out of form. And they describe this, you do it through bhavas or emotional, devotional moods, and you do it through losing a form and gaining form back. So in that way, I'm trying to lead up to this idea about non-violence not just being a quality like in morality, like, oh, thou shalt not kill, and also in the Dharma not being left just around the precepts of ahimsa, like in yoga, like you shouldn't kill or harm anything. And the Jains even have taken it to such an extent where they won't even want to breathe a microbe, or they'll be very careful about everything they do so that they will not kill anything. But I'm trying to introduce here by their own scriptures the idea that ahimsa is a living goddess. Nonviolence is actually a living entity inside of beings. And those who realize it will have these higher realizations. And we were talking about how meditation should be able to lead to form, right? Back and forth from formless reality and so forth. And in that very way, too, the same is true with nonviolence, is that you should be able to apply it in form, in action, and also beyond action. Beyond action as a goddess, that is, as the being who supports everyone. Water for the thirsty, hungry, food for the hungry, medicine for the sick, as is described here in their own scriptures. But also as coming back into action. See, then the goddess there is manifesting as your own compassion for suffering beings, for instance. So she has this facility in both action and inaction, and she has it in terms of formlessness and form. So we have to think of her as that way. This is a manifestation of the goddess, ahimsa. So they'll make her one of the deities, you see, and meditate upon her. That's really one of the benefits of form, is you can't really concentrate on formlessness because there's nothing there to concentrate on. So it's a very, non-duality is a very subtle and sometimes even contrary attainment. But what you can do is take form and formlessness and turn it into form, congeal it, and then consider that form as a manifestation of formlessness. And then it will do away with the possible problem of form and formlessness as two different, as a duality, that is. And it'll also lead you step by step into formless meditation. So that's kind of the ideology behind it. So we can do that also with ahimsa. Now, look at what they think about in terms of their actions. And some of this is for monks and some of this is for householders. But basically it's pretty much across the board that they keep these as their, this goddess ahimsa as their basic practice. You have to be careful while walking. I'm just going to go through this as if we were going through this. Like 32 immortal points of Jainism, you see. So you have to be careful while walking. No ridiculing, talking ill, or self-praise. Can't talk ill about others nor praise yourself. Carefulness in accepting food. You have to be very careful, to inspect it and know where it's coming from and how to take it. Careful in the inspection of objects. So if there's any living insect on an object or something, you wouldn't sit on it or crush it in any way. Before you stand up, you look around yourself to see if there's anything you might step on, and then you stand up. It's much the same like, a Zen Buddhist might get up from meditation, and before they got up from meditation, they've already envision himself across the room out the door. See? It's not like most people just stand up and say, oh, I think I'll start walking now. See? But before he gets off his pillow, he knows the nature of karma and he knows the nature of the world. And so he thinks, I'm already out the door here. Now I can stand up and move toward the door. So he's planned everything out in consciousness for himself. See, and does everything this way. Well, much like the Zen Buddhist, the Jain is like that too, and particularly in terms of being very careful about their actions. So, because they know that ahimsa, or goddess, this goddess, is in everything, both beyond form and in form. See, so wants to honor those precepts very much and be very careful. So that comes through in inspection of food and inspection of objects. It's also a very practical practice. It's practicable too. So it's very practical to be very careful about conducting yourself, not only for the sake of not harming others, but for tripping and falling yourself or bumping your leg and various things. The times when you hurt yourself is when you're not aware, you're not there, you're not very aware of what you're doing, and you're doing things too haphazardly or too impatiently or too quickly. So you slow down, basically slow that down. Now they also want to eat, drink, mostly in the day. They do most of their drinking and eating in the day. Now, Sri Ramakrishna even said that, have most of your food in the daytime. In the evening, don't fill your stomach more than half, he said, because it takes up too much energy at night, you fall asleep. The prana goes to digesting your food, and you can't stay up for those late night hours, which are peaceful, because people are sleeping. The spiritual airwaves are clear, and you can meditate better. They particularly like 12 to midnight till 4 in the morning for meditation. It's very good for the yogi. Brahma Muhurta, they call it. The Muhurta is like a period of about 48 minutes. But if you assign it at midnight, it's a whole period where you can meditate on Brahman, the formless reality, with the least amount of vibration in your way from collective humanity, or even collective deities, like angels and celestials and ancestors. You see, that's also the best time to avoid any kind of encounter with them. So that leaves it free and open for your meditation. So that gets back to eating and drinking mostly in the day and leaving your stomach kind of no more than half full at night, so that you have this energy, this prana coming up that's not being drugged down by food. And then you use up all your energy at night for digesting food, and you feel tired and you go right to sleep. So doesn't it sound sort of like conventional life? Get up, go to work, get out of bed, drag a comb across my head, as they say, and then go to work, and then work all day, and then come home at night, eat dinner, and then watch a little TV and fall asleep. So this is kind of the conventional round of life. They were just mentioning that in the first half. We want to stay away from conventional or surface things. See, and we can even transcend those rules, those usual conventional rules about eating and drinking and 3 meals a day and 8 hours of sleep at night and all of that. The yogi wants to do away with those, see, and just make everything conscious. His whole life is consciousness. In fact, he'll be more spontaneous around eating, drinking, and sleeping. Maybe he won't do it at all for a while. Then maybe do it sporadically occasionally and do it when he wants, or so forth. To break these habits, these conventional habits, not just for that reason. This is actually the way he is mapping his path out towards divine reality. So this is the path he wants to go by. But it will be necessary to break those mundane human conventions along the way, especially when the whole society is following them. So that's a good point. And then also, discharge excrement at a place free from living beings. So they'll be very careful with their food and also the results of digesting food. Now, restrict your movement to specific areas. That's another important thing. So it's not just sitting and standing and, being conscious about your movement and ending up in a place and doing it all in consciousness. Is that you might want to sit and think, I don't think I will go to that place. See, like saying, I was going to go to the store today, but then maybe I won't, because it's going to use gas, I'm going to drive over a bunch of bugs, I might hit someone, I might get into trouble, they might not have what I'm looking for at the store. There's 1,000 reasons why you shouldn't go other places. And so you restrict your movement on purpose. And that happens down here too with just everyday life too. You're going to be very careful where you move, and maybe not move at all. And you might want to just begin truncating all of this area and this desire to go places, and just pull it back into the self and be very economical in your motion and in you're doing everything consciously, but what I'm saying is you're going to be beginning to cut off superfluous places that you think you want to go or need to go. And it's not just a matter of economy, say like money or gas or things like that, but it's also a matter of saving of energy and putting it in a more ideal place. See, and staying centered in yourself, where the bliss is, not getting so pulled out into the world where so-called happiness is, but sorrow also waits. So the more you can do this and pull inside and be economical with your emotion, your thought, and everything that has to do with your spiritual practice, then the better you'll feel, and the safer you'll be, and the less problem you might cause for others. So it's got all these sides to it. Stay clear of impure or objectionable places. You say, well, I got divorced yesterday. The person would say, well, where did you meet your wife? In a bar. Well, what did you expect then, you see? So why were you there? Why are you hanging out there, you see, where people are doing mindless things? And what did you expect would be the outcome of an action that you did in a place like that? So you stay clear of objectionable places and away from those kinds of places. And it's a matter of holy company as compared to worldly company. Or even intellectual company, see, or even, like we said at the first half, why doesn't Krishna want you to rejoice? That's what everyone ends up doing. It's like party time. So you'll notice that even the smartest people in the world are waiting for their next party. You see, the party of the intellectuals is happening. So, but I don't think I want to go there, thank you, because why? Because nothing happens. They're not even talking shop there. I'd rather go to their class and listen to them there than go to one of their parties, because at least they're talking about science or mathematics or something relatively important. So you just curtail that activity, and you curtail that tendency, and it has to do with locations and it has to do with people, both. And all of this is training you eventually just to be happy in yourself, to be content in yourself, to be peaceful in yourself, and eventually be blissful in yourself. Where rolls the stream of knowledge, truth, and the bliss that follows both. So this is all something you take step by step until you reach the culmination of your spiritual practice. So spiritual practice has to have a culmination. It's not just you want to be a professional student all the time. So you do that systematically. Give up all sinful activities. Meditate on the equality of all beings. That's vrata, that's a vow you take. So samayika vrata, it calls it. Sort of like what Vivekananda is calling samadarshitvam. I want to meditate on the equality of all beings. If you were dipping those containers into the water, different size containers into the water, and you're the one that's doing the dipping, then you'd know that how things got separated, how things got contained, and then you'd know also the source that they were taking their essence from, you see. So that's more the idea. You want to have this vision of equality about everything, and then you'll be free from judgment, you'll be free from fault finding and criticism and ill talk and everything which is up here, talking ill, self-praising and ridiculing and all that, or Holy Mother called fault finding. You'll be free of all that, and you'll just see the same in everyone. See? And it's not a drab sameness. You're seeing consciousness in everyone. And then you'll know more how it gets colored by by the conditionings that it's gone through, and by the vehicles it's operating, and you'll be more compassionate that way. So the whole thing is connected in. Fast twice in a lunar fortnight. Serve guests with food and comforts. Restrict use of food, drink, bags, and bedding for yourself. So basically for the Jain who's practicing traditionally, bags and bedding means there might be bugs in it. If I get in there, I might kill them. You see? So most people are thinking, I want to kill those bugs in that bed before I get in. But they're thinking, I don't want them to be there in the first place because I don't want to kill them and then have the karma for killing them on my conscience, on my shoulders. So there's a whole different way of looking at things when you're proceeding consciously under the auspice of the goddess of Ahimsa. She's a goddess, and you perpetuate her, right? You perpetuate her, and she keeps you safe and free from harm, and of the highest use to others. Naturally so when you do that. These are things you want to take vows about. Here's another vow. I vow never to tie or restrain an animal from moving about freely. Even let your chickens go free ranging. They'll give you better food. You see? I take a vow not to beat any living being with a stick or a whip. See? I take a vow not to pierce the nose, ear, or limbs of any animal. I take a vow not to load animals beyond their ability to carry. And take a vow that I will not fail to supply food and drink to humans and animals. So, in the Taittiriya Upanishad, a lot of in there about the food, and about how a person becomes master of food and owns food and has food all the time and can give food to others. So if you understand the basic rules about food, you'll never be hungry in any world, in any body you go to. You'll always be a master of food. And food is extremely important in India, you see, in Hinduism and Vedanta, and not, on all levels. I mean, you can't probably find a subject other than Brahman that's more important than food for Hindu. And when I say all levels, it isn't just like what you're seeing here in the West. We have to eat and not starve, or go and take resources from other countries, or trade and all of that kind of thing. It's basically, you have to know food from the ground up. That, for instance, first your body is food for others. It's food for flames at the end, and food for insects, and food for birds, and so forth. And then you have to know that food is connected with Kundalini Shakti and raising of spiritual energy. And you have to know that food has 4 impurities in it. We took that teaching in the first class, right? Back in the first of these 5 classes. And that there's a certain mood that you create around food, a certain purity. And then getting to what we're talking about here, when I mentioned the Taittiriya Upanishad, is that you receive the ability from the goddess of food, if you want to say that, to give food to others, and give it freely and wherever it's needed. See, like we were thinking about Mathur Babu, who ran the storehouse at the Kali Temple when Sri Krishna was the priest there. So he had to give out cloths to all the holy men and give out food to those who were hungry, and he was Rani Rashmani's stepson. So he had to give out food to everyone, and cloths, and so he was doing this every day. So he was a person that had reached a level of ability to manage this kind of abundance, through his past lifetimes, and so he ended up in that position. He's just a very good example of a person who had mastered food, and he would never be hungry himself, and that wasn't even the point. Now It was that Mother made him master of food, master of ceremonies, right? In the world, not just in a hall with a banquet. In the whole world, you're the master of food, you see. And now you have to give this out to everyone else. This is your ability. So food on that level becomes very important, but you have to master it yourself first, you see. And then you can help satisfy the hunger of others. So it's really important teaching that you'll find in Buddhism, in Hinduism, in Jainism, and follows over, of course, into yoga, the purification of food, and Tantra, purification of food, and Vedanta too has its way of saying about it. Brahmarpanam Brahmahavir in the Gita, for instance, is a great food blessing. Now, so you will never fail to supply food and drink to humans and animals. It's a vow you take, of course. You get very good karma for doing this too. See, it's very good karma to feed others. It's not just that a guest comes to your house and it's your absolute duty to feed, and you've taken a vow for that, but you get very good karma for doing this, and actually you begin to love feeding others, sharing food. Women are like that. You see in the household, so forth, most women are like, well, let's share food with everyone. You see, give it all over the place. Now, here's some of the transgressions of restricted areas. They're very important to have this idea of not going outside of your prescribed limit. So going beyond the prescribed limit in one's area, you want to be careful not to extend that. And then going down a well or crawling into holes and caves. Increasing one's area prompted by greed, infatuation, or profit, you don't want to do. So that last one is particularly applicable in the West. We want to conquer other countries and then we'll have more. So it's the idea. So that's all based in greed and profit and getting more for oneself. So the Jain will not get into that tendency in the first place. So they'll keep themselves content with what they own. If you want to go even more inward from the Jain practitioner, then you've got the sannyasin who doesn't own anything. No house, no home, no family. Nothing is owned by that being, and they'll just wander freely and take what comes due to their own karma of the day. So that's important. Now, this all connects into this next brief look at livelihood, which I think is a real telling facet of Jainism that we can look at. They avoid trades in which furnaces are used. Trees are cut. Forests are burned. Liquor is produced. Animals and birds are sold. Excavations are used. Trades in ivory, bones, horns, furs, etc. Trade involving lard, meat, fat, etc. Commerce in poisonous substances and drugs. Works where lakes, ponds, and wells are dried up. All work where wicked men and prostitutions are supported. That's a short list of what a Jain would not go near as far as considering work or profession or earning money. And of course, they take vows about that, vrata, about that. They will not transgress those vows for any reason. A few of the quotes here to finish up this chart. Killing a living being is killing one's own self. Showing compassion to a living being is showing compassion to oneself. They who desire their own good should avoid harm to all living beings. That was a quote by Mahavir. Mahavir is the last of the great 24 Tirthankars. You can see them here in a row in their temple. And he was the last, and I think he must have lived even prior to Buddhism, which puts Jainism way back 24 generations prior to Lord Buddha's incarnation. So it's a very ancient tradition that's been practiced and it's been going on for a long time. In our next Nectar issue, which is coming out soon, we have another installment of Jainism by Swami Brahmeshananda of the Ramakrishna order, and it has to do with some very important tenets of Jainism, and how it's facing challenges nowadays. It's one of the least populated of the religions, of the major religions of the world, but they keep to their guns, and so important, I think, for us to look at Jainism. And just like it's important us to look in the West to look at the Muslim religion now. Very important, not just maybe even as practitioners, which some of us are becoming, Sufi practitioners and so forth, but even when people who aren't interested in the actual religion itself, they should become familiar with its precepts, and they'll understand those Middle Eastern countries better if they do. Now, we looked at that, and basically I was bringing it up in so that you'll know it on the chart. This one, Yasmin Nodvijate, who does not afflict the world, and Loko Lokan Nodvijate, whom the world cannot afflict. So if you want to practice nonviolence in thought, word, and deed, that the Jains do, or even become more and more sensitive about living beings and have less karma around actions, that whether they're conscious or unconscious, whether you're consciously committing violence to some species or some being or some race, or whether you're doing it unconsciously and it's just happening, both of those wheels are turning all the time. If you want to be more sensitive about that and reduce your karmas, which the Jains definitely want to do, they figure there's enough problem in embodiment without adding those karmic weights on top of it. So they're very specific about that. So you might want to then take Sri Krishna's teachings in the Gita. He said, those are very dear to me who do not afflict the world and whom the world cannot afflict. So there's a two-way street for you. That's a very beautiful duality to contemplate, really. I will not afflict the world, nor will I let the world afflict me. So you've got your defenses up around intrusions on your own peace of mind, say. And sometimes we say, if you want, as it was just said here, you should have compassion to other beings, because that's having compassion to yourself, right? So you should have compassion to yourself. One of the best things you can do for your own mind is to quit worrying, they say, see, because that's causing harm to yourself. To quit brooding about so many things that probably will never happen anyway. Your mind is constantly brooding. So isn't it sort of like keeping your body from going out to other locations and maybe having karmic ramifications? Wouldn't you do the same with the mind? You'd keep your mind from going out and thinking thoughts which have ramifications. So that's the economy of ahimsa. You bring it all in, not only your physical location, but your mental location, your energy too, and food. See, so all of it becomes very, very cut down and sparse. See, and you're beginning to live like the Buddha then, see, or like a sannyasin. And you can do this even while you're minding a household. See, for the householders, in fact, that's why you would have a mantra and meditate on God with form, because, there's a mortar and pestle karma that happens to householders. They call it mortar and pestle karma. If you're grinding things, you kill things in a mortar and pestle, you might be killing microorganisms or even bugs that crawl in there. So when you're doing actions at home, and say you have a whole family, wife, husband, 2 kids, and so forth, and there's all these actions going on. So there's all these negative karmas being built up that nobody sees in the family. And it's all behind the scenes, you see, and then pretty soon it's going to swell, and it'll come out as some big fight, or some big rebellion, or some big act of betrayal, or whatever the case may be. And that's all building up because of this actions that you've been doing that nobody's conscious of. See? So you become conscious of your actions, and you restrict you and your kids and your wife and so forth from doing things, and you pull everything back in an economy like that, and pretty soon life is going on in balance every day. There's no altercation at all in your peace of mind. The family's living in harmony, it's living in the Dharma, and before it was subject to all sorts of restlessness, all sorts of chaos, and all sorts of possible problems, you see. So this is again an economy of movement in both thought, word, and deed. And that really is an inner meaning of ahimsa. It's not just I shall not kill or thou shalt not kill, but it's actually a practical way of worshipping the goddess, ahimsa, the goddess of nonviolence. Or, I mean, nonviolence is not really any good word. Non-harming, non-violence, non-hating. It's like when you say those words, it brings hating and violence into the picture, and they should have never been there in the first place, you see. So we're talking about something in the goddess ahimsa that's just naturally free of hatred, naturally free of violence. It never thinks along those lines. It would never think to go to war, for instance. Now, that's just beyond what could possibly happen if you were a devotee of the goddess ahimsa, you see. You couldn't go to the Vietnam War in the 60s, you see, if you were, it's not just that you're an object, you know, how they call it, conscientious objector, you see. No, I'm a devotee of the goddess ahimsa. You see, that's different than being a conscientious objector. So I worship nonviolence, the mother of nonviolence. In other words, violence doesn't have a place here, you see, in me. It doesn't have a place. And so it can get that exacting, you see, that pure. And what else did you see in Jesus if you didn't see that? What attracted you to Jesus? You know, his beauty, his meekness, his humility, his every gesture of his hand, you see, was gentility, was love. You see, all those things were manifest because of the absence of hating and violence and all that. And when a soul like that sees hating and violence in others, they can't understand it. See, we can't understand their spirituality. They can't understand our violence. See. So that's why I wanted to bring out the Jains in this regard, because if you study them as you would study a Muslim, say, or any other religion that you consider a foreign religion, because you know our motto here in SRV, there's no such thing as a foreign religion. All religion is indigenous to your soul. You even have that on a bumper sticker out in the hall, you see, if you want to paste that up for people to think about. But, you know, that might be an act of violence, so maybe you shouldn't. People will see that and say, I don't believe in that, and they'll come after you. So in this world you have to be very careful. So better to practice in silence, very quietly, and trying to achieve this economy of energy in thought, word, and deed. See, and live like that. Be a dharmi, you see, not an adharmi. So in that way, it's a very beautiful teaching. So we looked at it there in terms of, we covered those two finally. It's a somewhat unique way of covering them, I think, but it goes, I think, more to the heart and the core of the thing than just reading that sloka in the Gita. Because he says, those who do not afflict the world and those who the world cannot afflict, they are dear to me. So he's putting it into this whole list of 32 points of immortal Dharma. I'd like to try and read that at the end of the class, just as it occurs in the Gita for you, so that we put a conclusion on this. But in the meantime, let's go on and finish up these final ones, which we can do very easily and naturally in this chart called that knowledge, knower, and that which is to be known. And this is a chart taken again from the Bhagavad Gita, so it's a perfect way that we could end this class. All these other points here, let me read them to you. Free of attachment, content with anything, a devout mind and intellect, full of devotion, untroubled, desireless. Those are what we have left to look at. Those will all be covered here if we can just look through this chart in the next half hour. So you can see here he's divided this into three. He says, learn from me in brief, O Kaunteya, that's a name for Arjuna, how to reach perfection and attain Brahman. So this is in chapter 18. So what we've been studying here is in chapter 12. And what we can now look at is in the end of the Gita. It's the final chapter of the Gita, chapter 18. So he comes up with another list sort of like this, not so specific to Dharma and Adharma, but specific to Jnana. Because, like I said, that last quote that last sloka in the Gita, he says, they who understand these things are doing Jnana Yoga to me. They're doing the highest worship to me. So he thinks Jnana Yoga, that is learning the wisdom of Brahman, is the highest thing you can do. Just that some people aren't probably suited for that or ready for that yet, as the case may be. But when you begin to absorb the Dharmic teachings, that's this great intellect, this great intelligence that they're looking for in beings who are fit for the Brahman state. That's a quote out of the Gita. They are fit for the Brahman state. So this Jnanam is very important. Atmagyan, as Lord Vasishta calls it in his scripture. So with that quote read, let's look here and see some of these bullet points. Niyamyacha shabdadin vishayams. So detach from the senses and the objects. Vishaya is basically the senses. So you must learn to detach from the senses and the objects. Your preoccupation with them is blocking your knowledge. Not just a crucial knowledge of yourself, but your foray into the realms of knowledge also are being blocked by focusing on senses and objects. Ironically enough, the objects are actually pieces of your own knowledge. And those very things are blocking your knowledge. See? Now if you can pick one up and use it in a knowledgeable way, then it can be a tool, you see. But if you're attached to it, then it's blocking your way. So he says detach from those things. And then you can penetrate deeper behind them. See through the object would be the way the yogi would do it. See through the object to what's behind it. Second, subdue speech, body, and mind. Yata vakaya manashaha. So subdue speech, body, and mind. Kind of echoing back to ahimsa, isn't it? What we wanted you to do was to gain an economy of thought, word, and deed. So here he's bringing this up again as an important facet. Relinquish attraction and aversion. We know that's one of the great distracting dualities. It's also two of the 5 kleshas in yoga. So you want avidya, and avidya is ignorance, and then you have egotism, and then you have dvesha, raga dvesha is attachment and aversion, and then you have fear of death. So those are the 5 kleshas in yoga. So you want to be very careful to relinquish those and go on to the point of living. Also he says, generate a pure understanding. Buddhya vishuddhaya. So this is a part of knowledge. Interesting what Krishna thinks of as true knowledge. So it's pretty much given right there. What's being blocked. How it's getting blocked too. Generate a pure understanding, he says. Then restrain the self with firm resolve. So always be, again, sparse and economy, and restrain everything. Store up that energy inside of yourself. Take refuge in dispassion. Vairagyam is, of course, that word for dispassion we use in Vedanta. Very important. Viveka Vairagya, we have it. Engage in meditation. Jnana Yoga Paraha. That's supreme, as it were, to engage in meditation. We've talked about that already today. Abandon selfishness. Gain peace of mind. Shanto. That's important. Live in solitude. Eat but little. So we're back to those rules of the Jains. Give up egoism, power, pride, desire, anger, and covetousness. Ahamkaram balam dapam kamam krodam parigraham is the beautiful list there. Ahamkaram balam darpam kamam krodam parigraham. Those words might be familiar to you. Ahamkaram, no ego. Balam, forget power. You don't need power, you need peace. My teacher used to always say that too. If you want the world, you get power. If you want peace, you get God. And then Darvam is, of course, pride. Kamam, kama is desire, we know that. Krodha is anger, that's one of the 6 passions. And covetousness is parigraha. So aparigraha would be non-coveting of goods and gifts, like asteyam. But parigraha, if you take the A off it, then you're coveting all these things, you see. These are things you want, and you're going to keep and probably get attached to, so you're going to end up having to detach from them. So it kind of does a loop here on you see, if you don't observe them. If you do observe them, these admonitions, if you want to say, of spiritual life by Sri Krishna, then true knowledge can develop in you without any breaches and breaks. Now let's look at the knower. He says, all these have sprung from me. The quote is, that one who knows me as unborn and beginningless, as the great Lord of the worlds, that one among mortals is free. So, of course, there are teachings, moral, dharmic, and sadhana and practice and all that. But then you're getting to these ultimate few statements that are, of course, the point of everything, every kind of life, including spiritual life. So he says about that, who knows me as unborn and beginningless, eternal, that means. That one is the great Lord of all the worlds, and that one among mortals who knows that is free. So what does he say as knowing is the knower? The one who is self-controlled, dritya. The one who is undeluded, asamoha, says moha, of course, is delusion. Who is forbearing, who is intelligent. There we have Lord Buddha's name there, buddhihi, intelligent. Cheerful, equanimous, nice word there, samatha. Non-violent, that's the more along lines of what we were just saying. That person is naturally non-violent, so their ahimsa is in them. That means they're the knower. See, if violence is in them, they can't know. Because you have violence towards something and you think it's other than yourself and you hate it, so it can't be a part of the knowledge process. It can only be a block. Generousness, dhanam, patient, kshama, wise, jnanam. Many of these things I'm reading off are the very nature of Divine Mother. So the whole scripture, like the Srimad Devi Bhagavatam or the Chandi, they'll be calling her, the seers will be calling her by these words. She is those very words. So that's what I was saying about ahimsa. She's the goddess. Ahimsa is actually a name for one of the aspects of the goddess. So all of these qualities are actually qualities of the goddess, and she's in them. That's why I started off saying Kala Shakti. If you gain the knowledge of the word and sound, sacred sound in the word, then you'll begin to understand that Mother's in the word. She's in the mantra, and she's in the sound, and that's why, earth, air, fire, water, and ether connect with smelling and all the five senses, seeing, tasting, and finally hearing. And hearing is the subtlest of the five senses. So that sound and the word is very important in that particular aspect of being the knower. So these are all names of the goddess. Finally, also fearless, abhayam, truthful, satyam, content, tushtihi, austere, tapaha, and calm, samaha. So these are all aspects of the knower. If you see those in people, then they have the knower either becoming manifest in them, or if they have them all, then that is the knower standing before you. You can test yourself on your Sanskrit too, you see. And in this whole chart, see, it's just single words. So what's krodam? Anger, yeah, so you know. What's kama?
Desire.
Lust or desire, yeah. So you can do the same with the positive ones. What's danam?
Generosity.
Generosity. The Buddhists are really big on danam. People go to their classes and leave their money there afterwards. And that's dana. You see, they want to have that kind of generosity. And you'll know Sanskrit words for qualities like patient, kshama, and abhayam, fearlessness, and so forth. All right. So all of these aspects of the mother, which you could even sing about. Gunahina sutan, aparada yutan, kripayadya samudara, mohagatam, taranim bhava, sagara parakarim, pranamami param, Janani Jagatam. Says so. Do thou this day save thy children bound in Maya's chains. Take virtue and vice away. Save thy children with the power of thy name. For thine is the only ship to ferry across this earthly sea, O Mother. Our salutations ever be unto thee. That's how Swami Advaita wrote it. So, do thou this day save thy children bound in Maya's chains. Increase virtue, take vice away. So all of these teachings, if you come to know them, then you'll have knowledge. Then if you know them, you'll be the knower. And then let's look at what is to be known, according to Sri Krishna. He says, I shall describe what has to be known, knowing which one attains immortality. First of all, and this is a hands-on list, it's not so much a list of qualities or negativities that you have to watch out for. This is a hands-on list. He says, in his inimitable way, with hands and feet everywhere, with eyes, heads, and mouths everywhere, with ears everywhere, existent and enveloping all, shining via the senses, but transcendent of them, transcendent but sustaining all, experiencing the gunas, yet being beyond them, within and outside of all beings, bahir, antara, both, moving about yet remaining ever still. Try and figure that one about. Incomprehensible yet all-pervasive. Indivisible yet divides into multiple beings. Beyond darkness, the light of all lights, seated in the hearts of all. It is knowledge, knowable, and the goal of knowledge. Jnanam, gyayam, jnanam, gamyam. So this is how he describes that which is to be known. That is Brahman, that is the Lord. Whether it's in form or beyond form. If it's in form, it'll have these qualities. If it's beyond form, then, of course, it's a moot point. So that's why he says, I shall describe what is to be known, knowing which one attains immortality. So this chart has then covered for us all of these other points. There are about 4 or 5 of them, of the 32 immortal points of the Dharma. And to end, let's read out of the Gita the way it's actually put. All of these are actually put in a row. That one who hates no being, who is friendly and compassionate to all, who is free from the feeling of I and mine, even-minded in pain and pleasure and forbearing. All of these are being ticked off as we go through this. Ever content, steady in meditation, self-controlled and possessed of firm conviction, with mind and intellect fixed on me, that one, my devotee, is dear to me. That one by whom the world is not afflicted and whom the world cannot afflict, who is free from joy, anger, fear, and anxiety, that one is dear to me. Who is free from wants, who is pure and prompt, unconcerned and untroubled, who is selfless in all undertakings, that one who is thus devoted to me is dear to me. Who neither rejoices nor hates nor grieves nor desires, renouncing good and evil, full of devotion, that one is dear to me. Who is the same to foe and friend, also in honor and dishonor, who is the same in cold and heat, in pleasure and pain, who is free from attachment, to whom censure and praise are equal, who is silent, content with anything, free from dwellings, steady-minded, full of devotion, that one is dear to me. Those who verily follow this immortal Dharma described here, endued with faith, looking upon me as the supreme goal and ever devoted, they are exceedingly dear to me. And that ends our class on 32 immortal points of the Dharma by Sri Krishna. All out of chapter 12, if you want to look into that. That proceeds through chapter 20. And if you want the exact slokas, starts with sloka 13 through 20 basically it is, in chapter 12. So you want to go and, as we did when we were younger, in our late teens and early 20s, we put that out and wrote it down on a piece of paper and stuck it on our wall. That's how long ago we were into our yoga, when we first heard about it. So if I were to put any better ending on this class, it would probably be just to sing to you that very thing in terms of non-duality. Jo kuch hai so tu hai, tujhse humne dil ko lagaya, ek tujhko upon paya, ek tujhko upon paya, jo kuch hai so tu hai, tujhse humne dil ko lagaya, dil ko lagaya. So the great song crafter, devotional bhajans, Jafar, sings that. He says, I have finally understood that everything exists in you. There is nothing apart from you, O Lord. All exists in you. So that kind of summates everything for us in this 5-class series. in a few verses, a few lines of his great song, about this all-comprehensive and all-pervading and transcendent reality, which you make your way through, through these great dharmic precepts. May we all be able to accomplish that in this lifetime. And what else to say? We will become dear to the Lord and Divine Mother of the Universe. So here, let's end a little early maybe, but let's end here with our final peace chant. Om Bhadram Karnebhi Sriniyamakevaha Bhadram Pasyema Akshabirya Jatraha Stirairangaish Tushtuvamsas Tanavir Vyashema Devahitam Yadayuhu Swastina Indra Vrida Shravaha Swastina Pusha Vishvadevaha Swastina Starksho Arishtanemihi Swastino Brihaspatir Dadatu Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. May we see with these eyes what is good and spiritual, and may we hear with these ears what is noble and uplifting, and may we, while worshipping the Lord and Mother of the Universe with healthy minds and bodies, live a life which is beneficial to ourselves and to all other beings. Om, peace, peace, peace. May peace be unto us, may peace be unto all. Om Hari Om.